I'm going to skip on to chapter 6, which is about fossils, and is called Missing Link. What do you mean, missing? This is a fiercely directional microphone. Creationists are deeply enamored of the fossil record because they have been taught by each other to repeat over and over the mantra that it is full of gaps. Show me your intermediates. They fondly, very fondly, imagine that these gaps are an embarrassment to evolutionists. Actually, we're lucky to have any fossils at all, let alone the massive numbers that we now do have to document evolutionary history, large numbers of which by any standards constitute beautiful intermediates. We don't need fossils in order to demonstrate that evolution is a fact. The evidence for evolution would be entirely secure even if not a single corpse had ever fossilized. It is a bonus that we in fact do actually have rich seams of fossils to mine, and more are discovered every day. The fossil evidence for evolution in many major animal groups is wonderfully strong. Nevertheless, there are of course gaps, and creationists love them obsessively. Let's again make use, in the first chapter referred to an analogy of a detective coming on the scene of a crime after the crime has been committed, and therefore unable to actually witness the crime, but who can still use the evidence that's still lying around in the form of fingerprints, etc. Let's again make use of our analogy of the detective coming to the scene of a crime to which there were no eyewitnesses. The baronet has been shot. Fingerprints, footprints, DNA from a sweat stain on the pistol, and a strong motive all point towards the butler. It's pretty much an open and shut case, and the jury and everybody in the court is convinced that the butler did it. But a last-minute piece of evidence is discovered in the nick of time before the jury retires to consider what had seemed to be their inevitable verdict of guilty. Somebody remembers that the baronet had installed spy cameras against burglars. With bated breath, the court watches the films. One of them shows the butler in the act of opening the drawer in his pantry, taking out a pistol, loading it, and creeping stealthily out of the room with a malevolent gleam in his eye. You might think that this solidifies the case against the butler even further. Mark the sequel, however. The butler's defense lawyer astutely points out that there was no spy camera in the library where the murder took place, and no spy camera in the corridor leading from the butler's pantry. He wags his finger in that compelling way that lawyers have made their own. There's a gap in the video record. We don't know what happened after the butler left the pantry. There is clearly insufficient evidence to convict my client. In vain, the prosecution lawyer points out that there was a second camera in the billiard room, and this shows through the open door the butler, gun at the ready, creeping on tiptoe along the passage towards the library. Surely this plugs the gap in the video record. Surely the case against the butler is now unassailable. But no, triumphantly the defense lawyer plays his ace. We don't know what happened before or after the butler passed the open door of the billiard room. There are now 2 gaps in the video record. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my case rests. There is now even less evidence against my client than there was before. The fossil record, like the spy camera in the murder story, is a bonus, something that we had no right to expect as a matter of entitlement. There is already more than enough evidence to convict the butler without the spy camera, and the jury were about to deliver a guilty verdict before the spy camera was discovered. Similarly, there's more than enough evidence for the fact of evolution in the comparative study of modern species and their geographical distribution. We don't need fossils. The case for evolution is watertight without them. So it's paradoxical to use gaps in the fossil record as though they were evidence against evolution. We are, as I say, lucky to have fossils at all. What would be evidence against evolution, and very strong evidence of that, would be the discovery of even a single fossil in the wrong geological stratum. J.B.S. Haldane famously retorted, when asked to name an observation that would disprove the theory of evolution, "Fossil rabbits in the Precambrian." No such rabbits, no authentically anachronistic fossils of any kind have ever been found. All the fossils that we have, and there are very, very many indeed, occur without a single authenticated exception in the right temporal sequence. Yes, there are gaps where there are no fossils at all, and that's only to be expected. But not a single solitary fossil has ever been found before it could have evolved. That's a very telling fact, and there's no reason why we should expect it on the creationist theory. A good theory, a scientific theory, is one that is vulnerable to disproof, yet is not disproved. Evolution could so easily be disproved if just a single fossil turned up in the wrong date order. Evolution has passed this test with flying colours. Skeptics of evolution who wish to prove their case should be diligently scrabbling around in the rocks, desperately trying to find anachronistic fossils. Maybe they'll find one. Want to bet?